All right. Well, good afternoon. Just now 1 o'clock Eastern. So I know people are coming into the space, but you're entering the next in our long series, in our wonderful series of QuickBooks training. Today's topic is, are you tax and finance ready? And this comes about as a result of a partnership with Intuit QuickBooks and the Association of Women's Business Centers. Sorry, my name's Corinne Hodges. I'm the CEO of the Association of Women's Business Centers. And I'd like to say thank you to Karina Liriano on the team who's helped pull this together. And we'll get to the stars from Intuit, from QuickBooks as well. But yes, welcome and thank you for being here today. The reason we're here highlighting the awesome opportunities for training that Intuit is providing is because we learned through the network of 140 women's business centers across the country that our clients, the clients of women's business centers, who are 70% women, 56% are people of color, have identified financial literacy, financial accounting as some of the greatest barriers to their success. And we saw that really show up, especially in like the PPP and EIDL loans coming out of the COVID pandemic. And so we're hoping that today's training is just really going to help everyone level up their skills. So it's really not just about tax time, it's about all the time. So we're really glad you're here, and we hope that this is helpful for you as you grow your business. And this would not be possible, again, without my team member, Karina Liriano, and the awesome team at Intuit, Anna Kipley, who's behind the scenes, you can't see her today, and Mariette Martinez, who you're gonna see quite a bit of. She's our star presenter. The feedback that we get from her presentations, it's awesome. She's got so much energy and she brings so much technical skill. It's great to have her here. So with that, I won't delay. I want to make sure that we get plenty of opportunity to fill the hour with the value that Mariette has to offer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, both teams, the Women Business Centers and Intuit, because they are the reason why we're here together, why I'm here, and of course, more importantly, why you all showed up to be here. So thank you for that. As Corinne said so beautifully, we are covering Are You Tax and Finance Ready? But I love when the person that introduces a session is so aligned with what the session's about. And she's absolutely right when she says it's not about tax time or one time, it's about all the time. I actually have a whole series that I teach to entrepreneurs about being tax ready and finance ready year round. And that is super important that we understand. And today we'll kind of pull that all together. So thank you for that, Corinne. Also, we will be covering some tax and accounting practices or best practices. It's always important for you to know that we keep that very general, very informational for learning purposes only. We are not providing any type of legal or tax advice. My name is Mariette Martinez. It is truly a pleasure to partner with I call them small business champions, like Intuit QuickBooks, like the Association of Women Business Centers, because they provide us the resource, the support, and truly the opportunity for us to thrive and grow and be successful. So I do that for a living now, after over 20 plus years in the accounting, bookkeeping, and tax profession as a practitioner, serving thousands of clients over that time frame. About 6 years ago, I started my transition into public education. So now I fully, as of 2020, have a learning center, Master Books, and all I do now is teach the entrepreneur community that wants to build their financial literacy from the inside out. And also I get to empower and educate my own accounting and bookkeeping peers on building a very intentional bookkeeping practice. So always grateful to be here. You can learn anything else about me at masterbooks.com. Now, let's really talk about you and what these last few weeks have been about. As Corinne said, we have been on this journey together, maybe for some of you, and I just want to say, I always like to say upfront, some of you like, well, I didn't know about this, or this is my first time here. That's perfectly fine. But we've been on this journey for a few months now. I actually remember doing the women's conference. I think that was back in maybe November. And so it's just so exciting to show up for all of you. Also, as we create this relationship together, even though it's through the screen, we're able to build knowledge. We're able to build confidence with one another. And so if you are showing up for the second, third, fourth time, come in here and really piece everything we've been learning together. And if you do have questions about the other sessions we've done, then you can ask those too, because today is really a culmination of connecting the dots. We started with year-end readiness, and we talked about what it means to go into the year-end strong. More importantly, closing the year-end strong so you can go into your best year yet. And then we went back and we kind of pulled the curtains back on QuickBooks Online. And I really showed you the 101, what I believe are the must-knows to feel like, you can put that cape on and feel confident as a superhero in QuickBooks and not be afraid that you're going to break anything. So we did that over the last few months. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually piece it all together. And we're going to bring it all back, and we're going to go back and bring in a lot of the topics we've been learning over the last couple of months to build tax-ready books inside of QuickBooks Online. So that's what I'm really excited about, as you can tell, when I'm able to piece it all together and know if some of you have been on this journey with us for a few months now, like maybe the light bulbs are turning on and you're getting excited about this stuff. And now we get to kind of bring it all back and make sense of everything. I also will be sharing the ultimate checklist again, which I introduced back in the year-end readiness, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into that as well. And so today's just going to be a really exciting time for those of you that either are already tax ready, you did your taxes and you want to really create awareness to do it better and more confidently every year going forward. Or if you haven't done your taxes yet, that's perfectly fine. We all know yesterday, maybe not we all know, but yesterday was a tax deadline for business returns, but you could have extended them. And now you have those returns that you can do on extension, or if you're a sole proprietorship, you actually don't have to file until April 15th. So again, wherever you're at, this is right for you. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to go back to the concept we taught a few sessions ago called the Tax Ready Books Journey. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down that journey over 3 pieces: how you complete your books, how you build those books for success so you can actually interpret what they actually mean to you and to the health of your business, and then how to prepare for your best year yet. That could be your best tax preparation year yet, or that can be your best year forward. So it's up to you, whatever is important to you, and honestly, wherever you're at, because you all can be at different places right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover tax ready books from start to finish. Just a couple of things I always like to share ahead of time is that there is, sorry, I'm going to mute my phone here because it's distracting and I don't want it to be distracting to any of you. So there are handouts that you're going to get. You possibly have gotten them already. Don't worry about that right now. You can really follow along on the presentation. You also will have a separate resource handout, which will have all the resources I mentioned. This will be one of the classes I will be mentioning quite a bit resources. Please don't get distracted or feel like, oh, can you put that link inside of the chat? You can ask if you want, but most likely all the resources are already available to you in that handout. So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. There also will be a replay available to you so you can watch me on slow mode, because I do get a little fast sometimes. So feel free to go back and watch the replay at whatever speed you like. All right, now let's keep going. Complete, build, and prepare. We also will be bringing QuickBooks in this session for demonstration purposes. It's super important that regardless of what electronic software you're using, that we have some type of software to demonstrate what we're talking about. And today we are going to bring in QuickBooks Online for that. Okay, so let's start with completing your accounting quickly and accurately. So here's what we're going to cover now. So I want you all to kind of imagine yourself at this point only that we're all kind of in the same place, okay? Let's say we haven't done our taxes yet, and maybe we haven't done just 2021. Maybe we haven't done a couple years worth of taxes. Again, no judgment zone in these classes. And so wherever you're at, you can use these options that we're going to talk about. When you actually go into QuickBooks Online, again, now I am going to refer to QuickBooks Online quite a bit over the rest of this session because we want to use an example of a real software. So when you go into QuickBooks Online, you can connect the banks and the credit card institutions inside of the electronic solution. So that way, everything essentially magically just uploads for you. Now, I am going to take a moment to be really honest with all of you. Okay. Again, whatever I say, and sometimes where it sounds a little bit like, whoa, that was kind of heavy, Mariette, I say it with would love, I really do. I say it with all the respect to all of you entrepreneurs that are trying to do your best, but just because you connect a bank or a credit card to your electronic solution doesn't mean you did anything right or you did anything that actually will make sense in your books. And what I mean by that is before you would have done that, you should have had your chart of accounts set up. You should have made sure that when things post inside of the financial statements, like the profit and loss or the balance sheet, that everything categorizes correctly. Because if you start uploading things and you're not really sure where those categories are getting posted, you can essentially be doing garbage in, garbage out. So you're putting all the information in and you're putting it in the wrong places. And now someone's going to have to go and either remove all of it or take even longer to fix it. So I just want to be really honest that connecting the bank is really the second step. The first step is to actually have assessed your financial solution, make sure you're in the right one, make sure your chart of accounts is correct. So that way you do magically pull all that data in and it goes to the right places. You can actually go back and watch our QuickBooks Online 101 class where we do talk a little bit about the best accounting solution for you if you're choosing to use QuickBooks. Okay. So again, I just want to be really honest about that. So let's say perfect world, you do know that. You're like, Mariette, I do have a good general ledger system. My accounts make sense. I've looked at my chart of accounts, or maybe I've had an accounting professional look at my chart of accounts for my particular industry. Let's say for this example, you're in the beauty industry. You're a barbershop. You know, a lot of people in the hair and beauty industry. So let's use a barbershop for this example. And so in this case, they've already done that work. So then they can easily bring in data into their system. And what that basically means is they're going to bring everything in and it's going to basically catch up on their accounting. Even if it's 1 year, even if it's 2 year, even if it's 3 year, they can bring the data in. And what that's going to do, it's going to minimize any user error because they're not typing stuff in. It's actually going from the bank or the credit card right into the accounting solution. So essentially right there, you're eliminating any kind of user error or transposing of numbers. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to feel pretty comfortable because this is reliable and secure information. It's encrypted from bank to QuickBooks. So you should feel pretty confident about that. Okay. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do this quite a bit today. So let's go ahead and do it for the first time. I'm going to go into what's called a test drive. So it's very easy to find a test drive. Right here, I'm on my website. I just save the test drives on my website because they're much easier to find them. But if you need a quick way to find the test drive, you could just go to google.com and just put QBO test drive, and it's going to take you to a test drive. A test drive is essentially a sandbox, a place where you can play along. Now, whatever you do in there gets erased every single day because pretty much the entire globe has access to these sandboxes. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up the QuickBooks Online test drive here. And that's why I like to do it like this. Instead of having to Google it, I can just quickly go and find that test drive. Again, if you need to find it, and you don't have to do this right now, you don't have to follow along right now, but if you want to find it, you just Google QBO test drive, or you can go to MarieetteMartinez.com, click on partners into it, and the test drives are right there for you. Okay, so I'm not going to do navigation on QuickBooks because we did that in the last class, but I'm going to show you what I mean by connecting your bank. And so what you would do is you come into the banking center. Again, if you go back and watch the replay on how to navigate in QuickBooks Online, this is going to be so much easier for you. So I definitely recommend you go back and watch last replay that's already available on the WBC YouTube channel. And so you go and click on banking. And then on banking, if there is actually no bank accounts connected yet, this is really important because you may be starting from scratch. You wouldn't see these three cards here. You wouldn't see these three things. You actually would see it saying connect your bank. So it would be the first time you ever connect your bank. If you see that, no problem. What you want to do is come over here and you want to go ahead and do the actual connection, the first connection. Once you've already connected the bank, then instead of it saying, connect your bank like from the beginning, then you go to link a new account because you already have the first connection. So now it's going to have you link a new account. It's the same experience though. You come in here, let's say you look for your bank account. And again, this is not going to let me go through the whole connection because this is a sandbox, but you'd go through that full connection there. What's important is there's probably, I'm not exaggerating, at least 100, maybe closer to several hundred videos online. You just YouTube, connect a bank in QBO, and hundreds of my colleagues have actually created videos for themselves because they send them to their clients. Basically, I do the same thing. And so if you actually want to have like a step-by-step how to connect my bank in QuickBooks Online, you can go to YouTube. You can either look at it right on QuickBooks' YouTube channel, or several QuickBooks trainers like myself have YouTube channels that you can do a follow along if you want. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go into the next option. Now this one's very, very exciting. So several years ago, what happened is that Intuit realized many people had years, multiple years worth of bookkeeping they had to catch up on. So just doing a connection wasn't enough, because some bank accounts only allow you to go 18 months, 2 years worth of data to do the actual direct connection. And so what ended up happening is now bank accounts, and I'm sure all of you know this by now because pretty much almost all bank accounts do this, have an actual activity area where you can print out either well, maybe not print out, but you can save as a PDF the statements, and you can also download the activity in CSV format. And when you can download in CSV format, many times you can download even earlier years than just a year or two ago. You can go back even further. If you can do that, then you actually can use those files to upload that data into QuickBooks Online. So if you can't make that direct connection, you can actually upload CSV files. And the importance of that is it's still the direct download experience. You're still going to, and I'll show it to you in a moment, you're still going to go to link an account, but instead of linking the account, you're going to upload an actual spreadsheet into the banking area. And so it's almost the exact same experience, except for instead of it just magically connecting with your bank, you're going to have to do that upload. Again, there's hundreds of videos online if you want to see that. And in the resources, I actually provided you videos on how to do this step by step. The last one, and this is kind of a secret, and I always laugh because I'm like, I hope my colleagues don't get upset. So this has been the biggest secret for years, and now it's really not, because I share it every time I teach all of my communities. So you can not only upload CSV files, but you can upload PDF files. Now, let me explain to you what that means, because it's not as direct as it sounds. And let me kind of open this for you so you can understand. So essentially what happens with the PDF file is that if you download the PDF file straight from the bank account, or even if you have an old PDF file, like an actual, excuse me, not an old PDF file, if you have a paper like statement that you're going to scan and turn it into a PDF, there are actually converter apps. Example of one is MoneyThumb. That's the one I've been using for over a decade. And essentially what MoneyThumb allows you to do, it allows you to turn that PDF into a CSV file. And once it's in a CSV file, then basically you can do the exact same process of uploading directly into QuickBooks Online. This, everyone, is honestly so magical, because before 10 plus years ago, I'm dating myself, maybe 12, 15 years ago, we literally, meaning me, the accountant bookkeeper, had to type data in when we couldn't get it straight from the bank. We literally had to get that physical statement and type it in. Maybe you too, as a business owner, maybe if you've been in business for that long, you know what I mean, where you literally had to manually enter stuff. No more manual entry whatsoever. The only reason why you would have to manually enter anything is if for some reason you just can't get your hands on any kind of statement, like not a paper statement, not a PDF statement, which would be very rare, by the way, unless you closed it like 5 years ago. But that would be the only reason why you'd actually manually enter anything these days. Now, that's why I call it the one biggest kept secret, because I think some business owners actually think that their bookkeepers still type in. No bookkeeper should be typing anything at all these days. Okay. And so I will just quickly show you here in demo. So when I told you that before you would have to go to link account or connect account, if you wanted to upload the CSV, you'd go to upload file. So that's the only difference. When you click on upload file, it's actually going to take you to where it's going to say, show me where that CSV file is. You'd click on the CSV file and you'd go through the exact same process. Again, tons of videos on that, and resource. The resources handout has a video on that as well. Okay. So I am going to check on cues for a moment, because that is a lot, especially for someone that's been doing it for so many years. I went through it really fast, but I do want to make sure if anyone has questions about that, about the opportunity to upload your data, about how you do it, about, what institutions will allow you to do that. Usually it's bank accounts, credit card accounts, even liability accounts, like accounts that you have loans with. So if you have any questions at all, go ahead and ask them in the chat right now. Put a letter Q and then the question. I also like to bring in Karina for time to time to see if she can shout out any questions that she sees. Karina, do we have anything out there?
I don't see any questions just yet, Mariette. We do have one that was pre-submitted. If you want to wait till the end, or I can go ahead and shout it out now.
Is it related to what I just covered?
It might be.
Okay, let's hear it then. Yeah.
Yep. So if we don't have sales yet, only expenses, should we create an LLC?
Okay. So not necessarily related, but I will answer it anyway. So if we only have expenses as of this point, it was expenses, not sales, right? Karina, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Should we create an LLC? Okay, so I'm going to be perfectly honest with anyone that's on here. And if the person that's on here that asked is here, you're definitely jumping the gun. Okay. And I'm going to explain to you why. We're already talking about a limited liability company. First, we need to talk about what kind of accounting solution you're going to have. So, and we're also have to talk about what does it mean to be a limited liability company. Now, if you go to the very first video that's already on the YouTube channel, maybe Karina could post it in there where you go look. We actually covered year-end readiness, and we covered the different entity types, both your legal type and your entity type. You need to make sure you understand just being a limited liability company doesn't actually say anything about your accounting. A limited liability company is a state designation. You need to know how you're filing for federal purposes, which could be a sole proprietorship, could be a S corporation, a C corporation, a partnership. So you need to understand that, because then you go back and you set up your chart of accounts and your profile based on the type of entity you are. That has actually at this point has nothing to do with accounting software. It has to do with understand your entity type and how that connects with your accounting system. Once you understand that, and again, if you don't understand anything I'm talking about, then talk to a professional, because they're supposed to teach you all of this stuff. Once you understand that, then the next step is, okay, I have all these expenses. Maybe I've been keeping them in a shoebox. Maybe I've been keeping them in a written ledger. That's awesome. Those all have to go somewhere. So sometimes they may just go in a spreadsheet for now, depending on your type of entity. If you're, let's say, a sole proprietorship and you're doing this as a side hustle, maybe it would go in QuickBooks Self-Employed. If you're a business that's going to need a general ledger system, which we talked about in the second video, QuickBooks Online 101, then you're probably going to have to use one of the other QuickBooks Online versions. So I know that was probably a longer answer than you were expecting, but it's because there are a lot of resources y'all already have access to. The 2 videos we already taught, plus the other resources I just mentioned. Go ahead and take a look at that. And then hopefully if you have a question like that again, it'll be more clear, and then we can know where to guide you. Remember also, I'm just going to do a shout out. The WBC has advisors for this. So I guess, Karina, let me just make sure I'm saying that right. Would an advisor be able to have that conversation like what I just covered? Would that be something an advisor could do for a business owner? Or Corinne?
I'm going to jump in for Karina just because she may be answering questions, but yes, in fact, we'll put the link to the AWBC's Women's Business Center locator. So if you've got questions that aren't answered in today's topic, whether it's about counting or something more broad about the business, you definitely want to connect with the Women's Business Center. Yeah. And just because they're women's business centers, don't shy away. If you don't identify as a woman, they don't turn anyone away. So we want to make sure everyone feels welcome. It's a very inclusive network. So we'll put the link in the chat.
I love that. I love that. And that's why, to be honest, everybody, before I move forward, that's why I love being here, because I know I'm well aware that this may be a lot and it's maybe new, or it may be maybe not so new, but it's like you're trying to catch up on everything I'm saying. The fact that you actually have in a women's business center, or let's call it a support system, to take everything you're learning and sit down and be like, okay, I have to figure out what my accounting system is. I have to figure out what my entity type is. You have that resource available to you. That's amazing. Seriously, it really is. So thank you, Corinne, for jumping in, because really you need both. You need to show up today, you need to grasp a little bit, and then you need to connect with an advisor to kind of walk you through all of these things. So really grateful that you all have that actually. Okay, so let's keep going and let's now cover building out your tax ready books. Okay, so this is a big session to tie things together. So imagine that you went ahead and let's just give the example of 1 year to keep it simple. You had 1 year worth of data. You were able to connect it beautifully into QuickBooks Online, the way I showed you under Connect. You're able to bring that credit card in one credit card in one bank account. Let's say you have one business credit card in one bank account. Perfect. You're able to bring that into QuickBooks Online. You already understood that whole idea about categorizing expenses and categorizing money in and money out. So all of that just magically got populated onto your financial statements. Again, we're kind of living in that world today, okay? And so what you actually were doing in the background is what I call the small business accounting workflow. I shared about the small business accounting workflow in a previous session as well, but the small business accounting workflow is going from actually managing your accounting transactions. That was the connecting the bank, categorizing it, getting it onto your financials. The second part is actually preparing the financial statements and being able to interpret them, analyze them, and actually see where your business is at. Also, of course, it has to do with a lot more comprehensive tasks like analyzing your books, doing KPIs, key performance indicators, checking your metrics. That's obviously next step. But all of that gets done only if you can get the data transformed into numbers onto your financial statements. That's tax ready books, essentially. Then the end of the small business accounting workflow is the very last part, which is preparing your taxes. But guess what? You don't have to know how to prepare your taxes. If you know those two steps, then what's going to happen is you're going to have a much more collaborative relationship with your tax preparer because you know where your numbers should be on the tax return. And if you don't know where your numbers should be, please don't feel bad about that. Have your tax professional sit down with you line by line on a Zoom meeting if you're not doing it in person right now, and they can show you exactly where the numbers from your profit and loss go onto your Schedule C, let's say. They should be able to show you that. I'll just be honest, if they're not able to show you that, then you probably want to make sure you're speaking to a qualified tax professional because that's super important, okay? No judgment, again, I just want to be really honest with everybody. Okay, so with that being said, there are two key year-end financial statements you want to be aware of because they need to be reviewed and they need to be closed. Again, as Corinne said, though, I want to make sure you understand, just because I'm talking about year-end from now on, I'll be talking a little bit about year-end and tax time. This should be a thought process year round. That's how you know you're tax ready and finance ready, because this is happening year round, not just at year end and not just during tax time, which is January through April or May. Okay, I just want to be honest about that. Okay, so let's go back to your two key financials, which is the balance sheet and the profit and loss. And I put them in a heart because seriously, if you're really loving on those financials, your business is moving forward. I didn't say it's profitable. Many businesses aren't profitable for the first 3 or 5 years, but I said it's moving forward because you're actually now having realization how important these financials are for your business. Okay, so before we go any further, let's just do a little bit of literacy here. And so for the balance sheet, it's important for you to be aware. We were talking a little bit about categorization earlier in today's session. The balance sheet has 3 main categories, which is essentially the accounting equation: assets equals liabilities plus equity. And so on the balance sheet, you're going to see your assets, your liabilities, and you're going to see your equity. In the income statement, also referred to as the profit and loss statement, you're going to see 5 main account types, the categories. People call them categories, people call them accounts. They're essentially accounts because they're part of your chart of accounts. So that's the appropriate accounting term for it. And so the account types are your income and your expenses. And then also, your income, and then your cost of sales or cost of goods sold, which is a direct expense. That's ones that many people are well aware of, especially if they're they sell products, or if they're manufacturing, they actually have a cost of sales or cost of products. Then you have your other general and administrative expenses, and then you have other income and other expenses. Okay. So now that you understand that literacy, it's important for you to know what it really means to prepare for tax time or prepare for a year-end close. There's really two areas there. First, you got to get the books in order, and then you have to get your books ready to go take them to the tax appointment, tax preparer, or for you, if you do your own taxes. Sometimes I like to ask right there in the chat, feel free to put it in the chat so others can know too. If you do your own taxes, this is very helpful for you to know the process to take your books from books to taxes. Again, if you do your own taxes, and of course, today I'm speaking to entrepreneurs, I really hope that you understand entrepreneurial tax. And so you understand the tax code, you understand the benefits. There's so many things that have changed over the last decade, only the last decade. I've been doing taxes for over 20 years, but really as of, I think it was like 2012, 2011, the tax code would change every single year. Like literally on December 27th of 2010, you'd have new tax code for 2011. It was crazy. And it's been like that now for over a decade. Sadly, over the last couple of years, it was happening even after the fact, meaning they were changing tax code during tax season, which is pretty nuts. So anyway, with that being said, you need to understand there's two sides. So let's go ahead and talk about the two sides. The first side, part one, is really all of your year end. So again, I'm just going to, refer you back to the year end readiness class we did a few months ago. I think it was in January, because I covered all of these year end tasks already. That is essentially your year end readiness. Then the second part is now preparing for taxes. And so think about the items and the tasks related to tax preparation. For instance, your year-end payroll forms, your W-2, your W-3, your 941s, your 940s. If you have contractors and you have a 1099 compliance, you would have dealt with that back in January. Finalizing the books for tax preparation, doing what's called matching from books to taxes, which we'll cover in a few minutes. Once the tax prepare is done, okay, they're supposed to be sending that information to your bookkeeper or your bookkeeping professional to go back and update those adjustments back into the books. That's very important. I've seen hundreds of books from business owners that have never updated their books with tax adjustments. That is actually at a detriment to the business owner, because they haven't been updating depreciation. They haven't been updating other type of accounts that have actually changed over the years. And so their books, QuickBooks, for instance, looks like it's never changed in 15 years in business, or obviously it has, because they have had tax adjustments over the years. So this is a conversation you definitely want to have with your accounting and tax professional. And then at the end, when the tax return is done, when you're all like, woo, I just closed that year, I filed my taxes, I'm good, I'm compliant, you can close the books. If you're using a software like QuickBooks, you can password protect the books so nobody can go back and change those. Okay. So now we're actually going to take a few minutes to do a deeper dive into financials. Now, a few of these slides are bonuses, and I say that because I'm not going to read everything on the slide, but they're very, very valid for you to take your time, especially if you watch the replay. You can take your time and you can really look at these slides, because this is super important. Okay, here we go. We're going to first look at the profit and loss statement. So again, go back to our barbershop, connected their banks, they did all of their reviews, they're ready to send their financials to the tax professional, okay? But before they do, they need to ask themselves, or at least get ready to ask their accounting and tax professional some key questions about each one of those financial statements. Now, there are hundreds of questions you can ask. I just brought up some key cues to get you excited and curious, and to start thinking through some questions that you can start the conversation with, okay? So on the left-hand side, you see your profit and loss is ready to go. I've highlighted some areas that you should be aware of. First of all, what kind of statement is it? It's a profit and loss statement. The first couple lines is your income less your cost of goods is your gross profit. After that, you have all of your other expenses, and then you have your net income. If you had other income and other expenses, they'd fall under that, and then you'd have your full net income or net loss on the bottom. Okay. And so let's assume you have that financial statement ready to go. So then you start asking those questions. When you're looking at a profit and loss statement, also not known as an income statement, I know I have to say that because literally they're the same statement, but in your electronic system, it may be called an income statement. It may be called a profit and loss statement. I don't know why they make life complicated sometimes, but seriously. So let's use profit and loss for this example. So you're looking at your profit and loss statement. and there's income on the top. Now, this is a very easy example. Many times there's several income categories on the top, all the different income streams possibly that business is getting that's been bringing in throughout the year. So you got to ask questions about the income. You also have to ask questions about the expenses, because on the bottom, so we had an example, a question a minute ago, what if we only have expenses? That means you already have business transactions going on. That's very important for you to be tracking all of that. And again, based on your entity type, there may be different ways to track it, but ultimately you need to track those expenses and you need to ask questions about those expenses. So for instance, a few examples would be, and this is a big one I get, when my business owners just don't know where to classify it. And so when I have a business owner that's like, Mariette, I'm going to do my best to really keep track and stay on top of this. You talk to me about managing the books year round. I'm going to do my very best. But every single month when we meet, because my clients and I meet every month, we don't wait till 3 months, 6 months, or once a year. No way once a year. I do not believe in that. I believe you should be managing and connecting with your partners at least once a month, at the very minimum quarterly, but you can lose a lot if you wait 3 months. But the point is that they would put all of those, I don't know how to categorize expense accounts, in an account called Ask My Accountant or Ask My Bookkeeper. Some of my clients would learn how to rename accounts and they'd call it Ask Mariette. It was really funny because they're like, before we even do anything else, let's go look at the Ask Mariette account. And sometimes I'd be like, why is there $175,000 in the Ask Mariette account? And that would have to be the whole appointment, because all we're doing is clearing that account out, because basically what they're doing is they're putting them there because they don't want to put them in the wrong account. And I appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because I'd rather clean up one account called Ask My Mariette or Ask Mariette versus 27 accounts that were all miscategorized. So that's another example of the kind of work you would do. Now, once that's been done, so again, if you remember the slide a few minutes ago where you've done all your audit proofing, you're ready for taxes, you can actually do the matching from books to taxes even before your tax appointment. And you're like, wait, what do you mean? Now, okay, you wouldn't do this from the beginning if you've never pulled up a tax return before, or if you've never really looked at your tax return. Again, no judgment zone. Many business owners, the majority of the business owners I start with, have never looked at their tax return until they go with me, where they have to look at their tax return, because I literally won't file until we do this process I'm going to show you right now. And so we pull up their P&L on the left-hand side. We pull up their financial, their tax form on the right-hand side, their tax form, and then we do what's called matching from books to taxes. So here's one example. So I would look at their income, for instance, $10,200, and I'd make sure that would go to line 1A, gross receipts and sales. Then let's say I'd grab their cost of goods, and I'd make sure that go into line 2, cost of goods, so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. All the expenses would go into the expense lines. There are going to be some specific lines that are totals, and I want to make sure that total, for instance, in net income is the same total for ordinary business and income taxes. If it's not, it's because there was a tax adjustment. And I need to explain to the client why, for instance, other than during COVID right now, meals is usually 50% deductible. So if they would go and look at their line that says meals, and they're like, Mariette, but my meals on QuickBooks says, let's pretend it was $1,100, but over there on the tax return, why are you only giving me, $550? And I'd say, because meals is only 50% deductible. So then we'd have that kind of conversation. And so again, and the thing is, for me as a professional, I want them to be aware of where the numbers are going, because guess what happens? At the end of this story, the business owner signs on the bottom line. They sign something called an 8879, or depending on the tax form, the e-signature form, it may have a different number, but it's an e-signature form that says, under perjury, I know and I'm aware that this is all correct. Sign on the dotted line, send it to the government. So that's pretty serious. And I want them to feel very confident about signing that. And that's exactly why we do this, okay? And so you can do the exact same thing on the balance sheet. You can look at the balance sheet. You can pull up some questions that are important for you to know about on the balance sheet. I'm not going to go through all of this again. Like I said, you're going to look at the balance sheet. You're going to have your questions ready to go. And you're going to do that same exact experience of matching from the actual balance sheet all the way to the tax form. Okay, so I'm assuming I may have gotten some questions over that. I usually do get questions when I do this process. So Karina, do we have some questions?
Yeah, we do have a few, starting with, could I do this with self-employed QuickBooks too, and how?
Okay, excellent question. So the first thing I would say is, and I'm not sure, Karina, if you've dropped the actual YouTube channel easily so they can go and find those videos I've been referring to. But in the session right before this one, and I have to be honest, they're doing all kinds of awesome sessions with QuickBooks. So in my session before this particular one, which was called QBO 101, we actually went through all of the different versions. QuickBooks Self-Employed is not a general ledger system. Okay. What I mean by that is QuickBooks Self-Employed doesn't have all of the chart of accounts, and you can't actually create both a balance sheet and a profit and loss inside of QuickBooks Self-Employed. QuickBooks Self-Employed is essentially only to prepare the Schedule C, because it's really for people that possibly have a side hustle. Maybe they're doing maybe one big 1099 job, and they're also usually W-2 employees, meaning they have a full-time job. And so essentially it really is only categorizing transactions onto a Schedule C. So if you're only needing to prepare a Schedule C, then yes. If you're trying to see your balance sheet and all the other things I showed you, which is really general ledger accounting, you would need to go into one of the other QuickBooks Online versions, which I taught in that class, which is either Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, or Advanced. So the question really is what type of entity are you? Hopefully you are working with an accounting and tax professional, or at minimum, just a tax professional. And you want to make sure that tax professional is aware of your entity type. And that self-employed is the best version for you. And then making sure that there are some kind of hacks, because I've been using self-employed since 2014 when it actually started, when that entire product was created. I've been working alongside the development team. And there are some hacks you can do to make sure you're checking that everything is getting categorized correctly. But you do want to make sure of that, because it's not like you create your accounts and put them in the right place. Those categories are created for you. Still a great software, but you do need to be aware a little bit of behind the scenes of what's happening. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we have another question from Jeff. He says, could you explain a little bit more about the tax adjustments that are needed on the books after the tax return is filed?
I'm going to have to see if we have some time at the end, but essentially tax adjustments, if you're not an accounting or tax professional, Jeff, you should be talking to your tax preparer about that. You may be using, and we'll actually talk a little bit about that in a minute, regardless of who you're using to do your bookkeeping and your accounting, you hopefully have a tax professional. The tax professional should be talking to you about the adjustments they're making. Again, maybe depreciation, maybe amortization, maybe choosing between the different depreciation types, whether you're doing like a Section 179 or you're doing more of a straight line. All of those kind of adjustments get done really on the tax side, and the tax preparer should be talking to the bookkeeper. And actually, back in the day, I'm talking about 20 years, I'm dating myself, I literally would get that green ledger and it would say debit, credit, debit, credit. I would literally go back and do journal entries for the actual adjustments. And the tax preparers should still be doing that. They should still be able to provide you an actual list of the adjustments, and the bookkeeper or you can actually go into QuickBooks and do journal entries and do your debits and credits. And so you want to talk to your tax professional about that, or whoever it is that's helping you get your taxes ready to get prepared. Yep.
Are you able to take one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. For the matching, from Jeff again, for the matching books to taxes, what if the books are done on the accrual method? Wouldn't the amounts on the tax return be different since it's on the cash method?
It's a very good question. And so here's, I don't want to lose anybody else, but I will answer that question. So there's two ways for you to do your books. You can do it on the accrual method or on the cash basis method. To keep it real simple, accrued basically means that as you're earning income, whether or not you receive that money, you're reporting it. As you're spending in expenses, whether or not you paid it out, you're actually reporting that. Cash basis, you're only reporting what you actually received in your hands. You're only reporting what you actually paid out of your hands. Now, you can look at QuickBooks Online. For this example, I'm just going to answer it. You can look at it in both the accrual and cash method. You should always be looking at it in the accrual method to see all of your finances in real time. At the very end of the year, you can switch. It's It's called a toggle to the cash method, just so you can make sure that your financials and your tax returns are matching the way I'm showing you. Very good question. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, let's see if I can just show that to you really quickly. So if I come over here and I click on a report and I click over here on, let's say, profit and loss, and I can come over here, see this? It's literally that easy. I can toggle from the cash to the accrual. And what happens is, if you're working with someone that does not know QuickBooks, and you've had it on the accrual method all year, which is excellent, which is the way you're supposed to have it, and they go and they take your financials and they file on the accrual method, it's because they don't know that two things is that they don't know that there's other issues there that they don't know, but they basically should have asked you, what are you filing? Are you for tax purposes? Are you accrual or your cash? Because you could be accrual for tax purposes, everybody. Make sure you understand that. So if you're not accrual for tax purposes and your cash, then they should do one of two things. They should ask you to send the report on the cash basis. And it's going to be very clear here. Let me do a refresh. When you send it on the cash basis, it's going to say cash basis. Or if you invite your accountant to QuickBooks, which is the best of all worlds, they should know better that they should come in here and they toggle at the very end once they're ready to actually prepare your tax return. So two things here. The business owner should understand this. So thank you, Jeff, for the question. The second thing here is the accounting professional or tax professional should understand this too. So that way you guys are both on the same page. But when in doubt, scroll to the bottom and see what the basis says on the bottom. That's what should be getting sent to the tax preparer for tax purposes based on your basis. So yes, the majority of business owners, especially if they're small micro enterprises, are cash basis, but not necessarily. So you should be aware of what basis you are as well, both for accounting purposes and for tax purposes. So that was a really great question. That's why I went a bit longer on that one. Okay. All right, so prepare the path for year-round success. So this really ties everything together we've been talking about. Really, this is about year-round. This is about really wanting to take ownership of your finances and your taxes and your compliance year-round. And so what does that really mean? And again, Corinne literally just said that so beautifully earlier. It's not about, and I think she said this exact thing, it's not about sometimes, it's about all the time, right? And so that's exactly what I'm going to say right here. It's not about once in a while or sometimes or tax time, it's about all the time. And I want you to feel just like this woman here, whether you're a man or a woman. The point is, I want you to feel like, yes, oh my gosh, I feel so good about where I'm at in my business, where I'm at with my finances. And so I'm going to close here with you some ways for you to feel more confident. Again, regardless of where you're at, whether you are actually filing your taxes still, preparing to file your taxes, or maybe you've already filed them and you really want to just build that confidence and mindset going forward. So the first thing is you want to complete your ultimate checklist, which you all have access to, and I provided it to you again in the resources. You want to engage with your financial professionals year round. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And you want to build your collaborative team. And so what's so important, I think what I love about these sessions is that seriously, my daughter always asks me, I have a 16-year-old daughter. She's like, so do you guys practice this, or do you guys have a script? And I'm like, not really. If I'm with a really cool team like Karina and Corinne and Anna, we just kind of can pull each other up on the fly. And so the fact that Corinne jumped in and she's like, yeah, hello, we have advisors here. Come on, call on to us. That's what we mean by a collaborative team. You have these people there at your fingertips, everyone. Please take advantage of that. So let's talk a little bit about that. First, let's talk about your checklist again. I'm not going to go deep into the checklist because, again, on the video back in January, I believe we did year-end readiness, but I just want to do a quick reminder. You need to start with your legal entity and legal and tax entity type. You need to learn your expenses and your deductions. You want to prepare ahead of time, be proactive. You want to know your deadlines, and you want to plan for your best year yet. Then you want to know which accounting professionals you should be working alongside. Again, feel free in the chat to ask about this because this is super important. Many times business owners just don't know who they're supposed to be speaking to. Are they supposed to be speaking to a bookkeeper? Are they supposed to be speaking to a financial and tax accountant? Are they supposed to be speaking to someone that's only doing taxes? And possibly, to be honest, sometimes when someone's only doing taxes, they actually may not have a strong foundation in accounting and bookkeeping, which when I say that, many people are shocked. There's nothing shocking about that. If all you decided to do was do taxes, and maybe you started doing personal taxes, you wouldn't know bookkeeping. You wouldn't know business bookkeeping because you didn't go into the business to do business bookkeeping and taxes. You went into the business to do personal returns with people that have W-2s, and you can make a very well living that way. And so it's really important for you, if you've been working with a tax preparer and you're like, you know what, that taxpayer doesn't seem like they really know a lot of the things Mariette just said right now. It's because maybe they started their business with personal and then they graduated into bookkeeping and business taxes, but they never really like officially learned that. And so just be really honest with your professional and be like, hey, you know, we really need to play catch up here and get on the same page. So with all that being said, there was a little bit of truth bomb there. Again, all the love, I mean that with all the respect in the world, but bookkeeping professionals, what do they actually do? So a bookkeeping professional, really today's bookkeeping professional, who are the ones I teach, I call them the new age bookkeeper. These are the bookkeepers that are so new age and they're coming in like on fire. They want to set you up for success. They understand accounting. They understand financial and business literacy. They want to sit down with you. They want to get to know you. They want to work with you, specifically even you as an ideal client of them. They also want to maybe learn your industry a little bit better. They want to make sure they're setting you up for your industry specific needs. They may even be training you on the software. Many of them are like me, certified in the softwares that they provide, like a certified pro advisor. Maybe they be an advanced pro advisor, which is a higher level of a pro advisor. And they want to work with you year round. Then you have your financial accountant. Now, your financial accountant is the one many people are aware of. Oh, I have one of those. It's my CPA or it's my EA. These are the ones that are a little bit hands off. They usually have a much higher billable rate. A bookkeeper could be between, let's say, $50 to $100 an hour, where a CPA or EA could be like starting at $175, $200 an hour, all the way up to $400, $500 an hour. So because of that, people are like, whoa, yeah, that's kind of high, but that's because a CPA or an EA or a professional financial or tax accountant has actually really put a lot of time into learning the tax code, learning the accounting code. Many times, obviously, they're graduated in accounting, but they could have a bachelor's, a master's, they can have have an MBA, and they're really helping you with that growth thinking. They're the ones really dealing with the analysis and really having you step up and think bigger and bolder. And many times they're working alongside the bookkeeper, where the bookkeeper is like, oh yeah, I have the client in a really good place. Let's get on a call with the CPA and the business owner, and let's talk about growth, and let's talk about metrics, and let's talk about KPIs. That's what happens with that accountant level professional. Okay. And then you have a tax practitioner. The tax practitioner, you many times could also be an enrolled agent or a licensed tax professional. Now, I'm going to say this, sadly, the majority of states actually don't have high regulations for tax professionals. So if they very well may not be licensed actually, and they're still doing taxes, which does give me some unease, as you can tell with my voice, because I believe that anyone touching my numbers and my finances and literally are helping me grow and thrive, because I need to bring money into my family and feed my children, I hope those people know what they're doing, right? Because I'm trusting in them. And so because of that, I do prefer people using people that are licensed or qualified. And so with that being said, if they are, then usually they can do these kind of things. They can help you with compliance. They can help you with taxes, like payroll taxes, sales taxes, state taxes, any kind of tax agencies that are out there. They can also help you with tax planning, tax projections, filing your self-employed taxes, calculating your quarterly taxes, and anything tax related. And many times, there are tax professionals that have gone through this entire journey, meaning they were a bookkeeper, they went to school, they became a financial and tax accountant, but they just prefer to be tax accountants only. They don't want to do anything else. Those were my best friends, because they were the ones that would do the taxes for my clients. I do the accounting for my clients. They do the taxes for my clients, but we would speak the same language. So very well, there may be people that actually have all of the qualifications, but they only want to stay on the tax side. Same thing with accountants. There's accountants that may know taxes, but they only want to stay on the accounting side. So just be aware of the difference there. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about here is building a collaborative team. And so really, when I talk about that, I'm not going to go too long on this because this is something that I really would love for you to possibly have a conversation with an advisor about. Who are those partners that are really going to lift you up, right? I love this quote: plans fail for a lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And the reason I say that is because you literally have a team that wants to grow alongside you. And here are just some examples of how you can break up those teams. You got your financial, tax, and technology team. You have your operations and growth team, and then you have your sales and marketing team. And as you grow, you can choose what's best for you at this point. So I want to be honest with you. I use all those people, but not right away. It took me years to start bringing people into my team and start asking for their services. Some of them are on my team and some of them are outside services that I bring in to help me grow, but it's been gradual. But the more important thing here is that you are aware that there's all these strategic business partners out there ready to serve you. And when you are ready to have them serve you, you can call them up and you can basically grow alongside them. So that's just important for you to be aware of as well. Okay, so I am going to take a moment again before we go any further and talk about what's next. Karina, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have just a couple more. I'll try to get through these quickly. So the first one, does a business necessarily need TurboTax if it manages its financial life using QuickBooks? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I want to make sure I answer this correctly. So does a business really need TurboTax if they manage their business finances using QuickBooks? Okay, so let me just explain again, with all the love in the world, you're actually talking about two completely different things. Finances are managed in QuickBooks. Someone needs to do the taxes. So if you were using TurboTax was your tax professional. And so if you no longer want to use TurboTax, then you still need a tax professional. And so you still need to do your taxes, in other words. So those are two different areas of your business. Do you need TurboTax? No, absolutely not. You can use a tax professional that's going to use their own software. And it's not TurboTax. They're going to use a professional tax software. And so I think the question there, I just want to make sure I answer it correctly. It's not really, do I need one or the other? The answer is yes. But if you're doing your finances in QuickBooks, you need to do your taxes. So you need to choose how you're going to prepare your taxes. And it sounds like in the past, it's been TurboTax. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. I think that was it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. And I saw there's some stuff in the queue. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. I'll see if I can before we wrap up. I'll see if I can jump in there as well. And so, okay. So what's important is I am going to share what comes next. I may have Karina jump in here really quickly because there is a very exciting business owners series related to QuickBooks that's happening. So do you want to share a little bit about that, Karina?
Sure. Yeah. So we just opened up early registration for our upcoming course with QuickBooks. It's an 8-week course from April 7th until May 26th. It's 1 hour a week, as well as office hours, Spanish and English. And this is a great training course, an excellent opportunity for you to learn about best practices related to the setup and customization of QuickBooks, particularly for your business, along with the inside outs of financial learning concepts. So it's going to be a great course. Carmen, our instructor, she's awesome. She's very hands-on. And again, that's once a week. And I'll drop in the registration link here as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's free, right? I think I heard you say that. Did you say it was free?
It is completely free of charge. Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. And by the way, I know Carmen, her and I do a lot of work on the Spanish side. So we actually create content in bilingual content where I do it in English and she translates it in Spanish and she teaches the content in Spanish. So I personally know the trainer, everyone. And wow, the fact that you're going to be able to hang out with her for 8 weeks is amazing. So definitely take a look at that. And I think, did you say, Karina, there are 2 separate series though, English and Spanish?
So it's the same series, but she will be able to kind of go back and forth, English and Spanish, as well as during the office hours, she'll be able to provide hands-on assistance in both languages.
Perfect. But the
She's
actual class is in English only. The class is only in English. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. But the office hours could be, you can ask questions in Spanish in the office hours. Perfect. Because she is bilingual. So that's awesome to know. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that. Also, you have access to a discount, and you actually have access to it right on the WBC page. We have a co-branded page. Karina may drop that in a little bit, but on that page, you can actually click on the icon that gives you access to the discount. This is an awesome discount, everybody. You have access to it by attending these sessions. So we just want to make sure you're aware of it. It's also inside of the resources that we provide to you. And then, of course, as we mentioned earlier, you will have access to all of these handouts and the replay and all the resources. So you guys are good to go. So before I drop off, because we have made it to the hour, I'm just going to quickly look and see. Okay, so there's one question here. And again, if you have any more questions, guys, put it in the queues. I am mindful of your time, and we do like to, end on time, but just stick them in the queues real quick and we can answer them. Better in the question and answer than in the chat, because I may not have a chance to look at the chat, but I will pop it up real quick. So I have a question here. It says, I have a CPA, or I believe I have a CPA, which is perfectly fine to not be sure. Do you still recommend we use QuickBooks to organize our expenses and income, or should I let them handle that? I feel like I do a lot of work on my end through QuickBooks, and then I just send them that work I did. I'm a sole proprietor, daycare provider. Wow. By the way, this is everything you just said. It's real life. So thank you for these questions, because I feel like this really helps other people. So number one, I have a CPA, or maybe I don't have a CPA. I'm not sure. You're totally in the boat with probably hundreds of thousands of business owners that are just not sure who they're working with. So that's the first thing. Ask for a call. By the way, it may be a little hard because it's March 17th. And so they're in hardcore tax season until April, but still ask for an engagement with them and just really understand what it is that they do. The second thing you want to be sure of when you do spend this time with this person, hopefully it's a good 30-minute, 45-minute Zoom meeting, possibly, or in person. Talk about your roles. Many business owners, okay, I'm speaking to all of you business owners here. There may be financial accountants that are watching this. I'm speaking to you, business owner. Many of you don't know what your role is in the relationship. Do not feel bad about that, okay? If no one's ever talked to you about the roles you play and what the role the accounting professional plays and how you guys collaborate magically and create these beautiful financial statements, if no one's ever had that conversation with you, and if you weren't even aware that you have a role and they have a role, then that's the next most important question to have answered. Who does what and how? Actually, I believe we're going to have a class on that soon. Now that I think about that, I think we're going to talk about who does what and how in QuickBooks, but this is even a bigger question. Who does what and how in regards to your finances? Okay. So should you continue using QuickBooks? Absolutely, yes, because it's a collaborative tool where you and your accountant can work together. I think the bigger question here, which I cannot answer for you, is who is supposed to be doing the different roles, the different tasks, and more importantly, who is not like on top of it, right? So don't feel bad on either side. If you've never had this conversation, then you really have to go in there very open-minded and open-hearted, because this is like the first time having that conversation, which is very normal, believe it or not, in the accounting profession. That's why I teach my accounting professionals how to be vulnerable and how to actually create conversations like this, because sadly, the majority of accounting professionals do not talk to their clients like this. So hopefully you'll go and be inspired to have a conversation with your business owner about this. Okay, I'm just going to really quickly look at the chat, see if there's anything else. So I see some questions about presentation. Yes, you'll have access to that. Materials, you already have access to that. Corinda's been awesome, dropping link. So we are good there. I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So everyone, I want to end with one of my favorite quotes from Benjamin Franklin: an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And I say that kind of with a giggle, because if you think about it, we're talking about paying, and this was free. This was free for all of you to attend, but I do want to commend you for something that wasn't free, and that's your time. So you really paid yourself today. You gave yourself the time to show up, which is incredibly valuable. And because of that, you will get paid the best interest. So I am super excited to be with you, to continue to be here. I'm thankful for Intuit and the WBC to continue to provide me this experience with all of you. And of course, I hope to see you in the next session. That's my information. If anyone wants to connect with me. And Karina, do you want to sign us off?
All right, thank you. And thank you for staying the extra 3 minutes. We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mariette. You're always awesome during these presentations. So thank you for that.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful day.